This is a Film Stories original podcast. Welcome back everyone to the X-Cast. The truth is in here. I'm your host, Tony Black, and welcome back to I Want to Believe Minute, where we unpick the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time. Today, helping me to explore minute 96, running from approximately 95 minutes as Mulder asks Scully a question, to 95 minutes 59 seconds as Mulder and Scully embrace our fellow X-Cast hosts, Kurt North, Carl Sweeney, and Sarah Blair. So we finished the last minute with almost like a cliffhanger because Kurt brought up about the colonisation, which is obviously in some ways it's the elephant in the room in this film for fans of the X-Files anyway. For the kind of fans that it's obviously something that in terms of box office and everything that the people behind the X-Files and owning the X-Files and all this kind of thing are more interested in, you know, a mass audience. But for us, it's only slightly alluded to in the entire film in terms of him being on the run and everything being forgiven and all this. But yeah, Kurt, mate, you made the point about how this don't give up message and them being together could be about the fact that they've kind of got a massive alien invasion to fight in a few years, which obviously never comes to pass, as we will find out when we get to the revival series. But I mean, Is that anywhere in, being honest, is that anywhere really in the film? You know, is there any kind of indication that that's something that Carter's got in the back of his mind here? You know, because I suppose if it was, you wouldn't have even need to do this kind of story anyway, would you? You could have done something where they're perfectly formed as a unit. They're, you know, you've put them immediately back on the X-Files or something. A bit like, I don't know. What do you think?
It kind of feels like it's designed to not put people off who might not have watched the X-Files for a few years and are coming to see this film, and therefore the film is designed in such a way that it's not bogged down with allusions to how the series ended too much. You know, it's dealt with quite swiftly at the start of the film, isn't it? You know, when they return to the FBI. I can't help feeling that I would have liked it to have been addressed in a slightly different way. I realise that it's at odds with the story they're trying to tell here, but when you think about how the truth really does sell the 2012 thing as such a huge deal with massive implications, it is somewhat odd how it's tidied away here. I don't know how much focus it would have needed, but I just feel like it's not handled perfectly. And yeah, I don't know. Kurt, what do you feel as a mythology buff? You know, do you feel similarly?
I do, yeah. On this point, Carl, I agree with you. It was a bit frustrating, the fact that he's just living in a house somewhere when they're meant to be on the run. And, you know, if he'd been like they're hiding out in Canada or something like that, then that might have been even better, because they're filming in Vancouver for the start anyway. So why not incorporate that into the show? You've done it before with The End. So you could have potentially done something like that. I know they don't want to throw too much off. And, you know, you get the bar scene in Fight the Future, and that kind of gives you the whole kind of aspect to what Mulder is and what he's fighting. It's very difficult under the circumstances from where they're to come in and actually, you know, as I say, you know, bring in new audiences and bring people up to speed. It's a difficult one. It just feels like everything just ends on a whimper, whereas, you know, we're left to believe that there's all these people within the FBI that are kind of, you know, replicant super soldiers and all kinds that, you know, nothing to reference at all, not even the date, not even like a little premise of, like, you know, something that he might be doing in the background, you know, in his office, that, you know, maybe he's on the run but he's checking things and stuff. He's clearly still researching, but there's no indication that there's anything major happening. And obviously there's a bit of a retcon that goes on in season 10 when it comes to that. And obviously the don't give up thing comes in there as well. So it will eventually link to the mythology, but it doesn't. It's to not have, not necessarily a full-on overt thing about the them being out and hiding I think is a missed opportunity. They could have brought him back from Canada and still had that helicopter ride, for example. You know what I mean? So, and it should have been done differently, I think.
Well, maybe, right, a little theory here on this, in that let's remember the last time that it was all apparently about to kick off with the alien invasion in One Son. What does Mulder immediately do? Basically, he gives up and he goes, right, well, we can't really do much about it now, can we? So we better get it, So he's sort of got a bit of form, I think, for when Scully's not around. He kind of goes to pieces, really. So is it a little bit that, with her maybe being off doing the doctor stuff and this uncertainty about how often she's staying with him or whether she lives there and all of this kind of thing, that they've maybe drifted a little bit, which is the impression I get in this film? Is it that he's kind of, because she's not there, he kind of does give up on everything, and even though he's in his little bunker, putting all these news reports on his wall, he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything about it. So maybe there is a little bit of that level of, over the last few years, that level of resignation that there's nothing I can do about this. So this message is an oblique way of getting them both back together, yes, but also don't give up on fighting the future, if you like. And if only that line had been in there, maybe, in some way. I don't know. Even if it was just for fans, that somebody had said, don't give up on fighting the future, we'd have all gone, yes, I know what that's about. Okay, great, let's go. Yeah. Third movie. I don't know. But again, that's fans reaching.
No, well, I'd actually do quite like that reading of it, Tony, because I think reaching back to One Son is quite an interesting way to read it, actually. I suppose, like you used the word oblique there, and I suppose the level of Mulder's defeatedness or resignation, if it is to do with the impending alien takeover of the world, it almost doesn't feel like weighty enough in a way, the way we pick up with him in this film. He should be really at the bottom of the barrel in a way, I think. But having said that, I like your reading of it as a way to smooth that over a bit for the viewer, actually. Yeah.
Well, Scully is Mulder's touchstone, right? So it's no wonder he becomes unmoored when he doesn't have her around.
Yeah. Look what happened to him in 3. When she gets abducted, he just becomes really, moody and starts having sex with vampires. This is, he's not good at this.
It becomes a slag. Yeah. It becomes a slag.
Yeah. Yeah. He's terrible. He's terrible with that. Which what I love is that the show just repeatedly makes this point. That he just cannot function without Scully. Whereas obviously when he's gone, she's really sad, but she can function. She can go out and be an FBI agent. She can be a mother. She can do all these things. Without her, he just becomes this, bearded hobo living in a cave, just going, I love it. It's great. Yeah, I mean, the final point on the don't give up, maybe before we slightly move past this, is, although, in some ways, is when Carter talks, he makes an interesting point about where this idea came from on the commentary, about how there was a religious scholar he talks about called either Houston or Houston Smith. I couldn't quite make out what the pronunciation was there. And it was he deals with comparative religions.
I wonder why he was drawn to... I wonder why he's drawn to someone like Chris Carter's name, a name like that, Chris Carter. I wonder why he was drawn to that name. It's a very Chris Carter name.
What, Houston Smith?
Yeah.
I suppose it is, actually, yeah. I mean, I've spelled it like Euston Station in London, and I'm not sure I've got that right, to be honest. But yeah, he says... He said to him that his definition of faith is not giving up, don't give up, and that was a part of the inspiration for what the messaging of this film is, which is interesting, I think. And immediately when he talked about comparative religions, I immediately in my head went to Donnie Faster in Irresistible, because that's what he's learning, isn't it? Or that's why he goes comparative religion,
Sorry, I was drinking at that point.
Did that go up your nose, Kurt?
Oh, no, okay. Thanks for that.
For anyone listening, Kurt literally just did a spit take.
That beats any Billy Connolly impression. That beats any Billy Connolly impression. It's brilliant.
Oh, actually, I was going to bring that up because I was listening to your minutes with Michelle and Michael about that and your intended Billy Connolly, and I was going to make the point that you need it to be a bit more strained when you're talking about Billy. It needs to be a bit more like that, I think.
Okay.
Just to make that point.
By the way, it's Houston Smith, Houston as in Huston. He died in 2016.
We've got a problem.
Yeah, exactly. He authored, you can tell I'm reading a Wikipedia page, can't you? He authored at least 13 books on world religions and philosophy. Let me give you some of his quotes then. If we take the world's enduring religions at their best, we discover the distilled wisdom of the human race. Okay. Then he says, institutions are not pretty. Show me a pretty government. Healing is wonderful, but the American Medical Association? Learning is wonderful, but universities? The same is true for religion. Religion is institutionalized spirituality. And he says, the goal of spiritual life is not altered states, but altered traits. So, yeah, I don't know how that all ties back into the X-Files. But what do you make of that, guys?
I mean, the FBI is an institution, I guess. You know.
Yeah.
But they're always having to deal with stuff that looks bad. If it looks bad for the FBI, if it looks bad, it looks bad for the FBI.
Yeah.
So they're not looking at the best.
But he says that all institutions are not attractive or ugly, and I with the FBI, I beg to differ. David Duchovny, Gillian Anderson, Annabeth Gish, I'd say that's a pretty attractive FBI, frankly.
But also,
I'm not sure he's got the FBI right.
And also, there definitely was a period where the FBI was very much kind of valorized in American culture, where it was seen to be a powerful force for good,
Wasn't it because of the X-Files, though?
I was thinking more sort of after the likes of Al Capone and those kind of figures is when I was thinking, when the FBI was seen as a really powerful force standing up against organised crime, Yeah. But we live in a more distrusting world now, don't we? I think, in relation to institutions.
Carl puts it mildly here on the Xcast. Yeah, but just mentioning when I broke Kurt then with Donnie Faster. Just mention the devil. This is something that Mulder brings up actually about the devil, and he says if Father Joe were the devil, he wouldn't say the opposite of the devil. Which is how he frames it. And it got me thinking, in a film that does have a powerful religious element to it, there's not a lot of devil iconography in this, is there? Or a lot of demon iconography. It feels like it avoids that. What do you think? Do you think that's intentional, or is it just a byproduct of the plot? Because obviously Dakshin and those guys, they're not like Donnie Faster levels of creepy murderer. Obviously they've got this weird romantic aspect to the Frankenstein sort of experimentation to him. But they do some horrible things, but I don't get the same kind of vibes as you get from a John Lee Roach or a Donnie Faster. It doesn't seem to be that same kind of thing.
No, it's very much more towards the faith and love aspect, isn't it? More than actually in the absence of the devil, more than anything else. I think because it's like leaning more towards that. The iconography as like the window in the hospital, Lady of Sorrows, and things that and obviously the depths of what Father Joe does. Would it be a little bit too much and too on the nose if you're kind of doing a bit of a juxtaposition between devil and that when you've got a paedophile priest in there? I don't know. Maybe it might have been a bit too over in that way, and that the taboo subjects may be enough to warrant that.
Yeah, maybe that, going back to what I was saying a couple of minutes ago, that maybe that's a different way to do this film that people could have understood a bit more readily. And yeah, maybe you have Father Joe be a bit more villainous and play with some devil imagery more with him. And yeah, whereas I think the approach taken, like we say, it kind of makes you uncomfortable because of the way it kind of a little bit draws you into Father Joe with a likeable actor and with him being apparently the conduit for this message and so on. So
isn't it a little bit more millennium as well? It's about more what people are, more than actually the devil itself. It's more the evil that people can do.
The evil that men do. Yeah, maybe.
Well, that's the thing about like Dakshin is his character. He's doing these terrible things, but for a good reason, or good to him. Like he's trying to save, his lover, and that's what he's focused on. He's like, he's psychopath, but like
Like
A kind
like viewed another way, this is a great love story involving those guys because of his motives being, driven by love and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like tell what I Want to Believe is about, but in a terrible way. It's like a love story in which a man murders serial killer for true love. What lengths will a serial killer go to for true love?
He won't give up. He will not give up.
Exactly. But yeah.
Don't give up on, removing a woman's head and placing your lover's head on another body.
So
don't give up on that.
I still need an answer
guys.
to this question because it's still confusing me why they needed the head. So I listened to Carl's Minute to Clara recently where obviously they dropped the head, the 7 aspect to it, which we both brought up actually because I was on the minutes after you. And I'm still trying to parse that a little bit because Scully says that the FBI is still alive. Now, I know obviously I talked about that in the minutes with Michael and Michelle as well. But is it because that the body is rejecting his head that's why they're trying to bring the head back? Because in the minutes just that I think Sarah, I think you would have done, where he's got the woman's body and they having to replace his head with I can't remember her name now. Cheryl, yeah, Cheryl Cunningham, isn't it? That they're doing a full body transplant rather than actually partial. That where they're bringing their head back to try and make that body viable. Is that what they're trying to do? I'm still not quite sure where that goes. I know it might be more to do with the writer's strike, but I'm still a bit confused about that section.
Kurt, I think we should just head away from this because it's too challenging.
It makes me think of Trigger's broom from Only Fools and Horses, where it's like it's the same broom, but it's got a different head and it's got a different stick. It's like it's still the guy I love, but his head is different and he's got a woman's arm and maybe I don't know.
The head of Theseus, if you like. Yeah, very good. Yeah, Trigger. I never thought we'd get Trigger's broom onto an episode of I Want to Believe Minute, and Sarah is just baffled.
No
by
clue.
This. Like, what are you talking about?
Idea.
Yeah, just Google it. Google it is all I'd say. Trigger's broom. It will bring it up.
I'll watch WandaVision first, then watch Trigger's broom. Because the Theseus thing's talked about in Vision first.
It's true, actually. You did bring that up on podcast 616, I think, if I remember rightly, back in the day. Anyway, we're heading way off topic, so let's bring this to a close. This minute, and we'll come back to talk about minute 97 as we race towards the end of this scene very soon. So don't go away, guys. Come back next time. Don't give up, and remember, trust no one.